Merry Christmas in July! I hope you enjoyed your GGM Eve, cause it's time to start dashing through your comments.
Wow! Time to make these holidays a little more horrible. Show me what this Santa loser's got already. Okay, I'm getting way too into character.
In this tale of how Wario stole Christmas, I pick Santa Claus! And here's why. Now don't get me wrong, Wario's one incredibly tough cookie to put down. He's not getting that bag for various different reasons though. First of all, trying to even get into people's houses or Santa's workshop and stealing the toys would be a very difficult task for Wario, considering he's been caught in the past, and as well his tendency to fart a lot, which would be enough to let someone know that he's there, whether by hearing it or smelling it. Santa might not be the most stealthy he is, but Wario isn't either. Secondly, there's the fact that Wario's not going to have a lot of help in trying to grab the bag, as he's never paid his employees, so they'll rat him out fast, if they even decide to help him at all. Waluigi could help him, but I doubt Sakurai would ever let him join Smash if he did, and considering how badly Waluigi wants to get in there, I don't think he'll take that risk. And finally, while he has ways of getting the toys, Santa has dealt with people who have tried to do the same thing. The likes of the Grinch, Swiper the Fox, Princess Moorbucks, the Delightful Children, and even devils from hell have all tried to ruin Christmas by stealing it, whether directly, getting everyone but them on the naughty list, or in the Pitch the Devil's case, manipulating kids to steal. But in the end, they all failed. And why is that, you might ask? Why, 'cause you're talking about Santa Claus, of course. To counter Adam's claim about him having all these people do his work for him, having those people as his helpers is his biggest strength. With the Christmas specials Old St. Nick has appeared in, he's gathered a wide variety of helpers, including the Mario Brothers, Sonic, Pac-Man, Ronald McDonald, SpongeBob, Timmy Turner and his fairies, Kiss, Stewie, Brian, the cast of the regular show, Johnny Bravo, the Powerpuff Girls, the Kids Next Door, the Avengers, the Teen Titans, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Steve Urkel, Merlin, and other holiday icons like the Easter Bunny, the Sandman, and many more. All these helpers can give Santa enough Christmas spirit and magic to give Santa exactly what he needs to stop Wario in his track. And I wouldn't want to be Wario when Santa puts his name on the naughty list, and depending on Santa's mood at the end of this whole thing, he'll either be taught a valuable lesson, and it will hopefully make Wario change his ways and give back all the stolen toys, like what happened with the Grinch and Swiper, or Wario will receive a spot on the permanent naughty list plaque. Bum bum bum. So at the end of the day, Santa's here to kick ass and eat candy canes. And he's all out of candy canes.
I lightly touched on this in part 1. Santa has made a lot more friends than enemies, I'll give you that. But I don't think that should be a major factor. Most of the characters who've had to save Christmas for Santa aren't people Wario should realistically have to worry about. And even for the ones that are, they don't get involved in Santa's affairs until after things were already on the brink of going south. And in most cases, Santa had to go to them for help. This might be reliable on any other day of the year, but this is going down on Christmas Eve, where Santa's carrying out his pretty important job, and this time has a relentless asshole tailing him the whole way. And your examples of Santa going up against Wario-esque characters are also pretty flawed. I can't actually recall a time he's dealt with the Grinch. In fact, that green bastard shot him out of the sky. And Swiper the Fox? You mean the preschool show character who gives up after being told nuh-uh 3 times? Well, if an Omega-level threat like that doesn't stand a chance, then I guess Wario really is screwed.
I do agree with some aspects, like I don't ever recall him dealing with the Grinch, but I don't agree with others interfering as something that Wario doesn't have to worry about much here. When I said that Wario would become a war criminal in part 1, that wasn't an exaggeration. For those who haven't heard of it, there's this little thing called Santa Tracker, run by NORAD. NORAD is an official military-run operation that will, and I quote, continue to track and guard Santa on his trip. This includes the Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force. You might just take this as Wario has to deal with the US military, which I already think Wario's gonna have a huge issue doing, but the Santa Tracker is something that the public is watching. It's something that Santa and the military are working together to make sure that the world knows that he's okay, and most importantly here, knows when he isn't. The moment that Wario tries anything, everyone is going to see it. Even if this limits it both to our world and the Mario world, everyone good, including a variety of Mario characters, are going to step in. Hell, Mario in canon has jumped in to help Santa. Then there's his friends as well that would help. As well, this is happening on Christmas Eve. 99% of the time when characters are helping, it's the exact same case. Most Christmas specials don't take place the day after or weeks following or anything like that.
Butter, I hate to break this to you, but not everyone in the world celebrates Christmas. Not everyone who does even believes in Santa. So off the bat, no, Wario's not going to make enemies with literally everyone, like you said in Part 1. But I also recall you saying that it was basically impossible to track Santa in Part 1, since no one's ever done it before. So very curious that you're bringing up NORAD, which is something that anyone can access online. That right there kinda invalidates Wario having no way to track him down when all he needs is a phone and decent Wi-Fi. I won't try to downplay the United States military complex, but I don't think it's gonna be as much of a problem as you make it out to be. Aside from the fact that Santa's been jeopardized within the country and even outright arrested without anyone getting swatted, you don't think they're gonna have anything better to do than hunt down 2 fat men across the world? I don't even know if NORAD is something they even take that seriously.
I will admit that I was partly wrong about Wario being able to track Santa, but that wasn't the main gist of it. It's Santa's stealth which is the major issue here. Even when being tracked, people virtually never get a glimpse of him. The tracking only ever happens because Santa partnered with the military. You argue that they don't take it seriously, but why do so many countries put a lot of effort into telling these stories then? Canada, Russia, America all get involved with this. And while not everyone believes in Christmas, the ones that do matter in this case. The military in the world believe in him enough to give him an official citizenship across the many countries along with NORAD. And the Mario world also generally celebrates Christmas and knows that he's real. There are times that Santa's been arrested like in Christmas Chronicles, but I can't really say that would apply here due to NORAD. That's the literal US military giving acknowledgement of Santa and his right to do this. The fictional world Santa, the myth, generally exists in, is just our own world. Just fictional because, he isn't, real. Sorry, kids.
Wow. And I thought I was the bad guy here. Well, it's one thing to be telling stories about this magical man's generosity, it's something else entirely to be expending an entire government's military resources just because something's off on the funny seasonal website. I don't doubt they'll want to help Santa out. Whether or not it's feasible for them to do so is something else to consider. Especially when they're making someone as insane as Wario their problem too. And even if NORAD just gives Wario a general idea where Santa is at the time, I think that would be enough. Especially when Wario has means of traveling just as fast or instantaneously. Something that's touched upon in the next comment. Though first, I was actually referring to the goated Santa trap with him getting arrested. Brush up on your Santa lore a bit.
If I wanted to use funny seasonal websites, I would go to the Assembly of Legendary Figures, which would give Santa things like time fuckery and help from gods and reality warpers. Don't need to go into that nonsense. Odin, god of Yule, the origins of Santa, my beloved. I think that this is a bit different because it's so large scale. It's the entire US and a lot of parts of the world that take part in this. Myths are made from us spreading stories, and while we can't trust every single one, things like this I feel are a bit too big to ignore. And assuming Wario knows what NORAD is, as plenty of people don't know about it, I think you're greatly overestimating Wario here. He's a Mario character, sure, but he's not nearly as insane as the mainline. He kinda fell out of the main series and became his own thing. Now don't get me wrong, he's still cartoony and crazy, but the main reason that some fictional characters would beat us is because of stats, which are relative here. Wario would have some trouble if a jet flies up and shoots him with a missile. I mean, he'd survive it, but it would still hurt, and they don't have to kill him, just distract him for a few minutes at most. Santa's sleigh would be able to get him out of there really fast.
I definitely don't agree with that. Part of the reason Wario even split off to do his own thing was so they could put him in wackier scenarios than what you'd see in a typical Mario game, which is saying a lot. He'd probably just grab a missile and toss it back at St. Nick for some friendly fire. But I think we've lingered on the soldiers long enough. Let's move on to a real soldier for this war. Yo. Yeah, okay. Alright, let's go. I got the Brando comment. Just gonna ignore that about him being trenched here, though. The slander. I mainly take issue with how Santa's continuities, for lack of a better phrase, are being blended. Butter claims that we've gone decades without catching him, and while he's done his supposed folklore activities unannounced, I hate to be that guy, but of course no one's ever found him. He's not real! Whoa! I say that like we didn't already spoil that in the last one. Apparently archaeologists in Turkey even found the corpse of St. Nicholas not too long ago. It isn't me saying nothing from the folktales is valid, but rather that the general anemone of his character presented in the video feels as if it's just cherry-picked the mythological qualities, splices them with real-world logic, and hand-waving a narrative context. Gotta pick one or approach them separately. This also applies to his magic bag. Most mythos imply it can create any toy. Santa is a saintly figure. Why would he have a tool that could potentially enact warfare? If we continue to approach this debate with real-world logic, then that makes Santa's lack of weaponry even more substantial, given he lacked preparedness for fictional armories. Wario can batter the fragile old man. Well said. Even if Wario doesn't know where to go, he obviously knows where Santa needs to be. Plenty of people under his employ likely celebrate Christmas and get presents, like Ninefold, Cat, and Anna. No matter how estranged his relationship with them all seems, every game he finds a new way to swindle them into his master plan. I think Ashley's magic is about as good as Santa's, giving the group access to flight, size-altering, transmutation, and monsters. You may argue the WarioWare Inc. members are too good-natured to participate, but they're also very short-sighted in their goals. They'll learn their lesson after the rose-tinted glasses of a never-ending Christmas fall off. W for Wario!
Keep this up, Brandon, and Santa won't be bringing you more of your primo raps for your Honkai Zero game. I understand your issues with using real-world logic like this, but the biggest problem is viewing him like any other fictional character. Santa is a myth, and these stories are meant to happen in the real world. Obviously, Santa isn't real, but the reason I use real-world equivalents is because the fictional world that he exists in is just supposed to be our own. It's only fictional because he is fictional. Creatures like Bigfoot and Nessie are seen as extremely stealthy because they have never been caught before for years on end. But the truth simply is, they aren't real. But in the fictional world where we take them as real, then they're just super stealthy. That or open portals to different dimensions. Bigfoot theories are kind of wild. But the same logic applies to Santa. He's supposed to be sneaky. It's part of his myth. Even the tweet you bring up doesn't throw a wrench in this. Stories of Saint Nick, aka the Santa Claus, do speak of his passing and how he still showed up after he supposedly died. Not only is he described as spiritual, but the literal personification of the time of year. With his bag and magic, he usually passes out toys, but it's never just limited to that. Not only do we have zero reason to assume his creation magic is just limited to toys, but there are many presents that disprove that. Jewelry, clothing, or the little BB gun that Johnny asked for. In the context of him tricking his friends isn't complex or genius at all. He asks them to make games, and then he doesn't pay them several times. He never asked them to do anything ill will like stealing, and even flat out tell him that doing this is wrong. They'd help him make a game, even if he has a history of not paying them, but not much else.
Oh, sorry. I was busy playing some Wario Land 4 for the Game Boy Advance, but I guess it's my turn to go off. I do believe how we've been going about Santa has been weird and inconsistent, but part of that is likely because he's just weird and inconsistent in general. Wario's also not real by virtue of him being a video game character, thus he's only limited to the logic of a video game character. Trying to present Santa as realistically as possible, according to the myth, if anything, is what's going to limit him here, since his crazier stuff comes from the cartoons and movies that exaggerate saidness. And unfortunately, that's also where we see a lot of Santa's flaws crop up as well. It's not like those original stories are scientifically accurate anyway, as Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson likes to remind us every year. If anything, I see it as it's trying to make the playing field as even as possible. If we take Santa too far in either direction, then it's just a total sweep one way or the other. It just so happens that going this route gives Wario more of a leg up, since all he has to do is catch up and take the sack from him, something I've established he has the means to do. And sure, he's not exactly a mastermind or a partner in crime, but his employees are still willing to go along with his harebrained schemes, even after they know fully well he'll stab them in the back at first chance. They're probably stupid enough to believe he'll share their Christmas goodies with them if they help him out, if they're still associating with him after all that.
From the Joker, to Velma, to Mr. Burns, and now the entire idea of Santa Claus. Don't I just love debating for characters with huge histories and wild levels of consistency? Adam, next time I suggest I want to debate for a character with more than a few decades of history, hit me, please.
Gladly. You gotta debate for more characters like Vig. Anyway.
Now hold on, I still want to win. I think we all agree we want to meet in the middle. The issue being, where is the middle here? Between just using the myths and stories, or throwing in cartoons and other media, I still see Santa coming out on top. Sure, Santa loses some of his abilities when we go into the more simple version, but he also loses a majority of his flaws. We didn't exactly paint Saint Nick as bumbling in the myths. And while I don't doubt that his friends are dumb enough to get scammed by him again, they just aren't dumb enough to help him in the first place. We don't want to spend all night on this one though, so let's unwrap the next comment. I'll spend my Christmas voting for Santa Claus, using the powers of distraction and deception. Let's keep Santa's circle of friends in mind, but ignore Wario potentially fighting every hero in America. Santa still has many friends for good reasons. If Wario tried to bring any help at all, Santa absolutely has the means of turning them against him. Just simply giving them something they've always wanted with a sincere smile and shining eyes. People who have worked under Wario have betrayed him when he does something really greedy or evil. Ruining the life of the most generous man of all time and making a world of children upset would likely be too far for them, and they'd abandon their mission with whatever Santa gave them at best. Some of them can be greedy, but they aren't absolutely heartless. More importantly, Wario himself is not immune to this. No, his heart will not grow 3 sizes, but he will get distracted by something really shiny or luxurious. Santa could pull out a whole store's worth of diamonds, bags of gold, or the world's most valuable toys and games, things irresistible to Wario. He's not the type to do 1,000 calculations per second. He's a very one-track greedy person. At best, he'll stop and think about grabbing them, and at worst, he'll waste time grabbing them. And then he will realize the bag's the more valuable prize, but that still gives Santa enough time to get as far away as possible and think of a plan. And I know the perfect one. Santa has thousands of employees, friends, and impersonators worldwide, people he knows who could potentially do his job for him. He could pass the job on to one competent person, or split the bag amongst several people to throw Wario off. Even if this isn't a mega crossover universe with every character ever, if Wario exists, that means Mario exists, and he and his friends have the magic and skills to do it, and that leaves Santa time to face against Wario himself. In a one-on-one fight, it doesn't matter who would win. The bag is the end goal. Santa's trickery and magic or combat ability if we're fully compositing should at least slow Wario down. He could distract him with a fake bag, and or bait him to the opposite side of the world, and or make Wario so angry that he loses interest in the bag and just wants to beat the shit out of Santa. Even if Claus loses the fight, if he can drag it until Christmas has been completed, he'll get exactly what he wanted, and all Wario will have is nothing but an injured old man laughing at him. There are just too many things that could go against Wario tonight. The match is taking place in his universe, and just his universe alone is bad enough for him. His allies have the potential to turn on him, and Santa's don't. He has the ability to lose his temper or get distracted, and Santa doesn't. Santa can change his plan at any time, and Wario can only really react. Wario can beat the man, but he cannot beat the idea. And then there's this little edit. I forgot Waluigi. He wouldn't betray Wario, but the problem is he brings nothing incredibly interesting to the table. He hasn't fought any people like Wario has, he hasn't shown to be immune to greed or distractions. Like 15 elves should probably be enough to counter him. Just beat the crap out of him and bury him out back.
A lot of this is stuff I feel like I've already addressed, like Santa's supposed allies not being that reliable, or that yes, he could just get help from WarioWare staff if needed. Sure, Wario's greedy and would probably be distracted if Santa pulled out some jewels. Problem is, Wario is really greedy, and he knows he can get unlimited jewels if he gets Santa's bag. And Shake It, you think he was just fine with the random coins scattering across the ground, when he knew there was an infinite coin bag up for grabs? Hell no. Like I said, once he's got his eyes on the prize, he's not stopping until he gets it. And sure, Santa has lots of elves, reindeer, and people dressing up like him on the streets. What's your point here? What are you expecting them to do to Wario? He's already fought against way greater odds and way more potent threats than a couple of toy makers and flying animals. Even if he gets someone else to do his job for him, that's just someone else for Wario to kick the butt of, which is still going to leave the sack wide open for him. Maybe even more so if someone like the yellow M&M ends up in charge.
Wario is greedy. So greedy that he wouldn't let a coin slip right by him. A lot of those games heavily encourage grabbing every last coin you can. Even if it doesn't immediately stop the threat, it's a distraction, which is all he really needs. Which is also what I think the second part was trying to say. Even if Wario could deal with every ally Santa has, it would still be a lot. Countless elves, reindeers, other myths like Easter Bunny, Father Time, Cupid, etc. A lot of humans, most people in the Mario world. It's all so many distractions that if he loses track of Santa or the time that he's using to deal with them, Christmas will be long over before you could actually get to him. As well, I want to say that Wario isn't evil. He's a greedy bastard, but even he has a moral compass. Christmas is a very powerful time of the year, and sometimes it just takes a little kindness to stop a threat. While it might seem baseless and you could say Wario wouldn't fall for it, I would like to bring up the comic that you brought up in part 1. When he was presented as a literal Scrooge, he actually felt empathy and regret for his actions. The comic itself even states that he generally started to behave more during the holidays. Now obviously he's doing something here, else there's no scenario, but I can see Santa stopping Wario with a nice gift, something that can soothe his anger. At minimum, distract him until next year, where he might try it again and Santa resorts to the same old trick.
You are right, Wario did see the error of his ways with A Christmas Miracle. In one comic. Oh, but all these stories where Santa sucks at his job and needs fucking Bart Simpson to fill in for him are just consistent outliers, I suppose. Sorry for being a bit of a Scrooge myself there. I'll admit, Wario likely wouldn't be immune to distractions, but given how determined he's been to get the Grand Treasure before, and how capable he is in a fight, I don't see him staying distracted for that long. Even then, Wario's transportation, combined with the Santa Tracker, will ensure he'll be able to make back any lost time. When Santa runs out of tricks and random snowmen to fall back on, all that'll be left for him to do is fight mano-a-mano for the bag. And just going off a general Santa, I still think he's screwed there. He's still a pacifist at the end of the day, and I don't see him pulling out a nuke to just blow Wario to smithereens or anything like that.
Santa does have a lot to work with, and I never denied there being weak Santas that would lose, but just as much there are godly Santas who would just sweep. Hell, there's probably a skibbity Santa who sticks his head out of toilets to deliver presents. It's a matter of us meeting in the middle and deciding how much we use. Wario's case, however, is entirely different. Yes, it's one comic, but that doesn't suddenly invalidate it. The issue would be if there's something that actively contradicts it. He is his usual self, but this comic specifies during the Christmas holiday, he's a bit better. That hasn't been contradicted ever since that I'm aware, and since this specific scenario applies here, I think that it's important. I also think this lays too much into them fighting each other. Wario's trying to fight Santa, but Santa would more so being trying to escape Wario. It's everyone else who's fighting him, assuming a present doesn't just stop the greedy fat man.
Well, it's a little hard to contradict it when none of the games since then have taken place on Christmas. But I digress, and feel like I've already said my piece on the rest of these points. Let's bring it back around to Diamond City with the next comment. Alrighty, I am bored. I guess you're bored. Christmas. Wario manages to handle the financial business or other places like Wario Castle, Wario Manor, and the WarioWare Inc., aka a business where he sells video games and consoles. So why not better than to use the power of capitalism? No hooray for me there. He can easily replace Santa's gifts with gadgets like video games. I mean, most modern kids don't like average toys, they prefer cool items. Sure. Sure, Wario can be greedy at times, but greed works as the more money, the more he wants it. Plus, his business is doing well financially, so he can easily outcompete Santa business-wise and be hip with the kids. How do you do, fellow kids? But it's Wario. Santa has to prepare and ready boxes, has to deal with the magic not running out, and he has to deliver presents before sunrise. If Wario manages to ruin one of those tactics, Santa is done. Another thing is that besides the elves who make presents, Wario can have his friends help. Since his friends have tech and mysticism, they can easily ruin Christmas. I keep coming back to the friends thing. I highly doubt the Wario cast will genuinely want to ruin Santa and Christmas, but every time they join him willingly because he forces them into various situations, so it's in character for them. The Inouye reason why they tolerate Wario is that he is their friend. A bad friend, but he isn't, say, D16 Transformer level or Jimmy Mousewashing level. I have not seen either of those, so I did not get the context there, but I'm sure they're bad. Okay. They can easily destroy or steal Santa's gifts like Cat and Ann, the Ninja Sisters, or better transportation like Dribble and Spitz or Orbulon. I forgot about Orbulon. Yeah, he could help. Besides Mrs. Claus, the elves, Rudolph, and the reindeer, unless other Christmas IP are allowed... IP? What? You're talking about Christmas like it's a franchise? Are allowed or not, how can they stand a chance against a martial artist like Young Cricket or a witch like Ashley, or 9Volt's mother, 5Volt, who's literally Wario's version of Nicole Watterson from Gumball? Yeah, there's no way they can handle his friends. I could say the only thing that can help Santa if he has Krampus, but in most media, Krampus is the bad guy to Santa, so I'm unsure. Wario is also strong as he managed to use his speed and strength. Yeah. He managed to show this in Wario Land, or the Wario games. I would hope so. I do not see feats of Santa being that strong, and if he and Wario face off, because Santa is too kind, Wario defeats him very easily, so Wario gets the win! Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for that, despite being bored.
Wario isn't trying to compete with Santa in some financial business game. He's just trying to steal his bag. If he wants to give out his games or sell them, good for him? Why would Santa care? My guy would just be running a legitimate business at that point. Santa ain't throwing hands with every Walmart every time he passes one, and with his friends, he doesn't really force them in situations where they're doing anything inherently wrong. They're just making games, and oftentimes they often turn against Wario by the end of the game. There's no way Wario can manipulate them into destroying gifts or stealing his bag. And the former wouldn't even matter, because that's still not the end goal. And Santa's allies are infinitely more reliable. On top of most media showing almost anyone would help him, including Mario characters themselves, but there are other myths too. Krampus in the myths was a follower of Saint Nick, there's all the countless elves, and even characters like the Easter Bunny who could help pick up the slack on present delivery. Or even just Father Time, who could fuck with time on the fly, something Wario has no counter to. Even if Wario got his hands on that bag, there are plenty of people who could help get it back and save Christmas. You know, just a typical cartoon special.
As I've said earlier, I still think this whole argument of anyone, anywhere will just show up to help Santa relies on too many assumptions to work. And just because he could, in theory, get all this help from all around the world, doesn't mean it'll actually be that useful to him. Obviously, he's got elves and reindeer by his side, but I don't see how helpful they're going to be when they're pretty much fodder compared to the big man himself. I already said my piece on the random citizens and the military. Now you're trying to bring in Father Time and other holiday icons? Like, at what point are you no longer debating for Santa? Because I feel like we were already going off the rails with the Odin shit. Again, Wario's employees and the few friends he does have are way more consistent and useful in this regard. And they've already gone along with even more harebrained schemes than this.
I don't think that it relies on any assumptions, as things like NORAD are at least watching and protecting him, and that's a minimum. And given that it's also being shown to the public, it's not unreal to say that others would jump in to help. One of the big arguments against him is how sometimes when people ruin Christmas, every popular series and their mother comes to his aid. I don't think you can argue using that logic and then argue against the idea of other characters helping Santa. Even Mario characters themselves have come in to help. And his employees are still not helping Wario. Even if they could, they realistically wouldn't help him do something this vile.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure Jake from State Farm will be a real boon here. You could also see NORAD so not out of the question. And you say that like they're not either really gullible for still sticking around with him, or wouldn't just go along with it. Ashley's probably been on the naughty list plenty of times herself, and other kids like 9 and 18 volt would probably get hyped up with all the video games they could want. It seems like a stronger case than saying Mario, Mickey Mouse, and Fred Flintstone would all come together to kick Wario's ass. Also, he could just threaten to fire them if he wants to be a real Scrooge. They are his employees, so nothing's stopping him.
It doesn't necessarily need to be someone like Mario. In the WarioWare games, he's gotten his comeuppance just from other groups jumping him. From a group of pirates yeeting him into the atmosphere to a fucking 4-year-old squirting him with a water gun and jumping on his face. I'm not trying to be specific on who might jump in, as it's realistic that people are going to help if they see this happening or are asked, including Wario's friends himself. I know you say that they work for him, but they aren't bad people willing to do this, nor has he tricked them into doing anything like it. Your best case is Ashley, but she hates Wario. The 2 times that he asked her for help, she immediately hung up on him and also just said no to his face. And both times too, he immediately gave up on pushing for help. You're saying that Santa getting help is a lot of flips when Wario doing anything is a lot of flips for the guy we're talking about. He ain't stupid, but especially in the WarioWare games, he charges in without much of a thought or planning to his ideas to make a quick buck. That's why they're usually ending with him getting completely screwed over.
It's not a lot of flips, I'm saying it's not something that should be relied on as a major win con. At a certain point, it feels like less we're debating Santa versus Wario, and more like Wario and friends versus Santa, the whole world, Norse mythology, and whatever other fictional faces he's met. No duh, it's going to seem pretty stacked against my guy here. Let's just try to move on from this before the Paw Patrol get any bright ideas.
Overall, I am siding with Santa on a one-horse open sleigh. All the feels we go laughing all the way. Since Santa is clearly composite for this debate, any kind of inconsistencies with his power, magic, or stats shouldn't matter, and the same goes for Wario. And there is a Santa in Marvel comic who in his sleigh could move so fast he could keep pace with Quicksilver and Ghost Rider in Marvel Holiday Special 1991. Also, not to mention, Wario in a fight would get his ass kicked so hard it's not even funny. Santa is way faster given him keeping up with two massively FTL Marvel characters, and also anything he has done with his magic alone. Also, I'm surprised this wasn't brought up, but Santa is way smarter than Wario. Keep in mind that it's shown in Christmas Chronicles that he can memorize every street and person in the world, and has knowledge of everyone at all times. Also, another thing on Santa being inconsistent, the character Santa has been around since the 3rd century, and it wasn't until the American Civil War where he got his iconic red hat and outfit created by Thomas Nast. It's not really fair to the character to limit him in any way because he's just so old. Either you're going to make them too broad by including everything, or make him too narrow by only including certain betrayals. But in this debate, it feels more like the broad interpretation of him. Also, lastly, what if Wario has a Grinch moment, where he feels guilty for ruining Christmas and decides to give it up and help Santa? Wario isn't just this emotional asshole. He has moments where he feels sorry for people, even if it happens really rarely. Like the time in Wario Wears Smooth Moves, he acknowledges Mona's efforts and indirectly supported her in running a business. Overall, Santa is more versatile, has a wider range of powers, faster and smarter than the wannabe Mario. Try as Wario will, try as he might, stealing Santa's gifts won't make him live through the night.
Okay, hold on for a bit, Butter. Now it's my turn to geek out for a bit. First off, I recall we explicitly said no Marvel or DC or any other versions that would just render any debate moot. If it was a full composite, I'm sure Butter would have brought up the stupid Odin thing a lot sooner. And second, the same does not go for Wario because there's only one Wario to look at. Sure, your Wario Lands, Wares, and Mario Sports tiles are all technically separate games, but it's not like he's a radically different character between them. Compare that to there being a gorgillion different iterations of Sandy Claus that all vary wildly in personality, powers, and most importantly, competence, and it's not the same thing at all. By its very nature, Santa's a character where you can just make shit up about him and it's as valid as anything else. I could just say if Santa were real, he'd be scared shitless of Wario because he knows he'd lose his magic bag to him. I won't just do that for the integrity of the debate, but if not for that, what would stop me? Let alone refute it without the same issues coming up. That's why these inconsistencies are such a problem. If we're just going off of a generalized Santa just based on how he's usually depicted, and I would still argue that there are way more iterations that don't take advantage of these OP powers he's supposed to have. Much less depict him as some all-knowing Christmas wizard that can just go, poof, you're good now, happy holidays!
We did agree to try and keep the busted versions out as much as we did the weak versions so both sides could actually present a viable debate. But then again, I could be funny and argue that Odin comes from the original myth and can't be ignored.
You throw that Odin in the O-bin, Butter.
Alright, jokes aside, I don't think that they meant it like Santa and Wario are one and the same when it comes to canon. I think what they meant is that they were being argued with external media in mind. As what stops you from arguing your own specific version of Santa losing to Wario is the agreement of a middle ground. Just like I'm in agreement not to use things like Odin, you shouldn't use some powerless, pitiful Santa. While it is hard to track what we should and shouldn't use, I think popularity, official authority, and general logic should give us some good ideas on what we're working with. But more importantly to what they bring up, I do think Wario seeing the error in what he's doing is very possible. While he is greedy, he isn't outright evil, especially in recent game where he's mellowed out quite a bit. His friends have convinced him to do the right thing before, and he's even taken blame for something he did wrong. A lot of the stuff he does recently isn't even fully out of malice. It's usually his tunnel vision or lack of knowledge of what he's taking. He's also felt bad when his friends get mad at him, a literal example of the holidays at least temporarily improving his attitude.
I like to think those three things are what I've been going off of for the big guy. For the most part, at least. But if even you agree that not all Santas are created equal, then that shouldn't mean we take him to be infallible as well. I can admit a redemption arc is likelier than I think, but it's not something that's going to come into play until either of them win this thing. That seems like the best case scenario for a general idea Santa. But like you even say yourself, Wario has some strong tunnel vision and has literally tossed people aside just to grab whatever he's trying to get his hands on. Even if Wario's heart does grow 3 sizes that day, it'll only be after he's proven he can get the bag. Which, reminder, is the end goal here.
Depending how we approach this, I can't say that I fully agree. If we're going in this like they already have some knowledge on each other prior to the situation, like Wario even knowing about NORAD and Santa knowing about Wario, prepping a present beforehand is not unlikely. In the end, Santa is a very good heart, and knows that sometimes a little kindness is all that it takes, and the series has shown that that's all it might take with Wario. But Christmas Day is approaching, so let's take a look under that tree for the last comment. Alright, let's see. This one's from Kirby to Wario.
Okay, ending with a bit of a long one, but let's bring it home. Kirby, Rice, 6, duh. Santa may have a lot of magical abilities, but he is a lot more grounded than Wario. Wario is probably the most cartoony Mario character and is kind of like a Looney Tunes character, being able to do almost whatever, so it's going to be hard to fend him off. Santa isn't really used to fighting that much, let alone fighting someone as cartoony as Wario. Butters, the famous South Park character, keeps mentioning how stealthy Santa is, but even in these stories most people aren't sending traps for him or looking for him, because even in these stories most people don't believe in Santa, and the people who do are like little kids. Do you really think that Wario wouldn't be harder to avoid than some little kids? Heck, in some stories Santa gets caught by those kids. On the topic of that, Santa has been caught off guard multiple times. In the Tim Allen Santa Claus movie, he even gets arrested by the police after they catch him going into one of the houses. Ooh, okay, forgot about that one. There we go, third Santa arrest. Plus, half of the time where Santa is in a Christmas special, he gets caught off guard by whoever the villain is and needs someone else to save him for Christmas. True. Real shit. I don't see why he wouldn't also be caught off guard by Wario. Though on the topic of Santa Claus needing people to save him, yeah, Santa does just have a lot of people to help him. But you see, Wario can mind control people, so he could just mind control everyone into joining him. He could even mind control the reindeer and force them not to fly. So sorry, Santa, but Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is on Wario's side now. Thought we were going to avoid a Red One reference here, goddammit. It's also not even accounting for the fact Wario could just kidnap Santa, and it's most likely no one will notice his disappearance until it's too late. Besides, Wario has people who could help him too, like Waluigi, all of his employees at Wario Inc., and even Bowser himself. When was that? So Chance Time could legitimately be used here to steal the gifts from Santa. That would be funny. Santa usually needs someone to save him once one villain approaches him. When Wario has this many people with him dead set on Kris Kringle, then it might just be over for him. Especially when you realize how cartoony and busted the Mario cast is. Sure, not everyone is as cartoony as Wario, but they are still going to be huge things to deal with. Also, don't feel like it would be too hard for Wario to catch Santa. Not only will Wario, at the very least, have Waluigi going after Santa too, but as Adam mentioned, Wario has multiple ways of keeping up with Santa. I just realized we haven't mentioned Waluigi once, this whole thing. I don't think we do in the script later, so sorry dude. Including a teleporter so Wario could just keep teleporting to where Santa is at. The last thing I wanted to bring up is that when Wario has a goal he is usually very motivated to do and will stop at nothing. Yeah, that was one of my points. So Wario may slip up a bit, but he will keep getting back up. Meanwhile, in a lot of Christmas stories, Santa will almost give up after even the smallest of things happen. Santa will stub his toe and then say Christmas is ruined. Now imagine what he is going to do when Wario comes at him. I might have had a jolly Christmas, but in this story, it's no longer Christmas. It is Wario time! Okay, yeah, I gotta stop doing that.
Sure, he isn't as combat-oriented as Wario, but again, he doesn't have to engage in it. And even if he does, there are plenty of examples of him being able to fight. And sure, in some stories they don't believe in him, but there's also a lot more stories where everyone believes in him. Not to mention, just going with the basis of a myth Santa, he should have to be extremely stealthy. His job would require with how many places he visits without being seen. Tim Allen Santa was extremely inexperienced at the point where he's caught, and he clearly got much better as the movies went on. Even if the movies got a lot worse. And to stop the arguments from spindling like a broken record, I feel we've made our points clear on how we feel about allies and viewing Santa who stubs his toe and ruins Christmas to DC Santa dodging Darkseid on the yearly.
He may be able to hold his own, but I still think that Santa is going to at least have to try defending himself when push comes to shove. I already went over all the different ways Wario can keep up with him and do well in the war of attrition these two will have. Santa can be as stealthy as can be, but it won't matter if Wario's just waiting to jump him, something you seem to love at a point against the W-Man. I don't think this is unreasonable either, since we've seen that he's not always seeing you while you're sleeping or knowing if you're awake. And conjuring Jingle Bells out of thin air probably won't be that useful if Wario just hijacks his sleigh while he's on the job.
I would say it's more like he just has to get away from Wario, which wouldn't be hard with things like teleporting, turning into mist, or his sleigh. I don't think that Wario has things that can keep up with those, and while Wario could wait for him, Santa sneaking by him is also very likely. Plenty of people stay up and never catch a glimpse of the Red Man, and Wario himself hasn't kept up with many forms of stealth. He's got friends who are stealthy, but having a friend who does something doesn't mean you share any of the skills in it. This also requires a level of planning I don't think Wario has. He's a very jump in and try to batch his way through kind of guy. Again, WarioWare games are often quick plans to make a quick buck that blow up in his face most of the time.
I've seen Teddy and Kate stow away in his sleigh by accident, and that was with a more experienced Kurt Russell Santa, where they actually remembered to give him his awesome clairvoyant powers. And I feel like I've hammered home plenty of times that Wario does indeed have stuff to keep up with St. Nick in the first place. Magic math, space travel, or again, just wait it out and beat him up, since he'll have to stop at Diamond City eventually. Wario's pretty bullheaded, yes, but we've seen him take more calculated approaches before. The time he got Mario off his back by putting a bucket on his head. Simple plan, but pretty effective nonetheless. And Wanda won't be here to help Santa, despite what you say.
This again falls under arguing different varying Santas. It can go both ways, but to help give it a more solid ground, I think we should rely on the myths before the movies. The base myth under normal logic would require him to be super stealthy and to sneak around, and keenly smart to be aware of where everyone lives, what they want, and how to get there in one night. No matter what movie you might argue goes against it, the myth should beat it out just by being the origins of it all.
Honestly, I really have to question how much stake we should be putting in this original myth, because it seems to me like applying normal logic to Santa's mythos has been what people have been doing for centuries. Just people have so many different ways to approach Santa logically, and the idea of Santa has changed so much since then, enough to where I think looking at him as a general character is more than fair. Both have clear-cut strengths and flaws, but Santa's become a lot more pronounced when you have to account for so much more. But at this point, I think we've said all we need to say. So shall we bring it home for the holidays, old friends?
Sounds good to me. As an iconic popular Christmas song says, you better watch out, you better not cry, you better not shout, I'm telling you why. This verdict is coming to town. Well, Adam, we went through their list of abilities and skills and checked it twice. Now all that's left is seeing if there are any presents under the tree this Christmas holiday, or if it's truly been turned rotten.
Wario may have earned himself a spot on the naughty list this year, but one thing's for sure. He's made this Christmas as rotten as he possibly can, as I knew he would. But now to carry on the momentum of Yogi Bear saving the princess by turning you into garlic butter. Get it? Because Wario eats garlic and...
A fat L in this situation.
I'm never getting a Switch 2 at this rate.
You lie! You're a fucking liar! Shut up!
Okay, yeah, Santa wins. I mean, this was a Christmas episode after all. That and it was really difficult trying to argue against every Santa out there, to say the least.
Now this ending wasn't decided because of Christmas and good endings and such things. Just when it came down to it, Wario getting his hands on Santa's magic bag was just a really hard task. Just Wario alone didn't have any means to really keep up with Santa's sleigh. That thing travels the world in one night, where the most Wario has is a jetpack, his flying hat, and his rocket. The first two aren't really meant for traveling long distances, and the rocket may be a lot faster, but they're usually only meant to fly one direction. Up. Not to mention, the only time that we see him fly it, he immediately crashes. Maybe the Mario Karts, but even if he had them on hand, they aren't usually able to fly without a booster or a glider. Even then, they don't cover nearly as large distances as the sleigh.
Well, not the only things. I can admit, a lot of the other stuff I brought up to help him here aren't really as useful as I made them out to be. The magic globe was specifically for him to get to the shake dimension, and I don't know if it's as applicable outside of that. Other things like dribble and spits rely on the idea that Wario's allies would just go along with this. But yeah, he would need to pull off some major gaslighting for that to happen, which isn't exactly his strong suit.
He's never actually gotten them to do something bad through trickery. He just doesn't like paying them usually, and given that one of the games literally has them hassle him for stealing, I really doubt that they're going to take any part in this. It's kinda hard to argue anyone within reach for Wario is willing to help him steal from Santa Claus. Ashley was a fair case as she's described as mischievous, but she also hates Wario. She immediately hung up on him when he called her, and just told him straight up no when he demanded for her help later on. Not exactly ideal or reliable help. Meanwhile, saying that most regular Joes or a Mario character would help Santa in a bad situation is far more believable. A lot of Christmas specials prove that. Hell, Santa has Agent 47's number on hand. Even including things outside of his verse, Krampus and NORAD are still very much part of his myth and on the table for help.
And speaking of NORAD, that's yet another hurdle to overcome, actually keeping track of the guy. Sure, I do still think Wario just waiting out and ambushing him is a viable strategy, but for every Santa that loses to regular people and falls for Home Alone-ass traps, there's just a lot more that are, actually competent. And would absolutely take advantage of their laundry list of powers, whether it's teleporting, clairvoyance, just charismatically giving them a present, or for some versions, actually fighting back with their own skills. There's just...
Odin, god of Yule, baby!
No! Damn you, Purple Ragna. But yeah, there's just too much to keep track of, even with just a generalized Santa, compared to Wario being a lot more straightforward.
He's just been around for too long not to have a million ways to end this. DuckTales can manipulate time, which Wario can't resist, Christmas Chronicles can pacify or just teleport him away, or even Miracle on 34th Street, where Santa can just wipe away or manipulate your memories. Even if we laid on the myth alone and sit away from external media, sure, he loses a good amount of his powers, but he still loses pretty much every single one of his weaknesses. Just the myth alone still has Krampus protecting him, implied magical powers, is able to keep track of everyone on the planet, and stealth skill that Wario has no reason to keep up with. So even if Wario sat and waited, Santa isn't dumb enough to fall for a basic trap and is still stealthy enough to slip right by before he knows what happened.
Well, my win streak of 1 was nice while it lasted, but maybe this is for the best. As much as I love Wario, I don't think anyone actually wanted a Santa L. Can't really say I did, at least. This episode got me a lot more into the holiday spirit, so I can't complain about that. Jolly good show, Butter.
I am so sorry I broke your streak already, Adam, but I had to fight as hard as I could for Santa. And now that we're here, I can finally delete the 160 tabs I have on my phone about Santa lore. Oh, Jesus. I'm never touching a character this complicated again. Oh, let's face it, I will. Let's see who's next on the list. Regardless, I did enjoy diving into this new series. It was a lot of fun, even if it was the longest running franchise I've ever tackled. I was completely lost when I first started. Thanks for pointing me to the 4 main arcs that I should be looking at, Nem. It saved me a lot of time.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed it. Did you just call Christmas a series? You know what? Never mind. I should have won.
Just for that, you're going on the permanent naughty list.
Oh no!
Wario sat in his house and waited all night. He would not go down without a big fight. An hour, then 2, then 3, then 4, but he didn't see the Jolly Man at his door. Perhaps he won't come, he knew to avoid his plan for the bag and to steal all the joy. Before he could blink and a tick on the clock, a red whoosh flew past him, leaving only a box. Happy holidays, Wario. I leave you this letter to tell you I see that you're getting better. I'll give you a present to fill you with cheer. Continue to improve, and you'll see me next year.
I did it! Take that, Santa! Oh no! My present!
It's Christmas in the summertime. The sun is up and I feel fine. Christmas in the summertime. Let the summer shine.